In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 reasons that at some point you're probably going to want to quit songwriting and why you shouldn't. Reason number 1 that you'll probably want to quit at some point is that at some point in the process, it's work. Sometimes it becomes work because there's a certain part of the songwriting process that you're maybe not very good at, or there's a certain part of the process that you personally take a long time with, maybe you struggle with more. So for example, it might take you a while to write a lyric that you're really happy with. Or on the other side, you might be a person that you can always come up with one really catchy part for the song. Maybe you come up with a cool piano riff or guitar riff, but building it out into a full 4-minute song is something that you struggle with. I think the idea that if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, completely untrue. At some point, anything that you dedicate enough time to becomes work at some point in the process. For example, I love doing this. I love talking about songwriting. I love making videos about songwriting and podcasts, but sometimes it's work, right? Sometimes it's Sunday night and the podcast is supposed to come out Monday morning, and I think to myself, ugh, I just don't want to do this right now. I want to do something else. I want to watch more Scrubs. I want to work on my own songwriting. There's a bunch of different things that we might want to do, but that doesn't mean that we don't enjoy the thing. There are also going to be dry spells where your creativity feels like it's really kind of dried up. You might get off to a fiery start, write like 3, 4, 5 songs in the first month you start songwriting, but then you find yourself over the period of 6 months not really writing much of anything, feeling like everything you do feels uninspired and just boring, or you just really don't like it, or you're not even having fun doing it because it doesn't feel like it's that good, but you're investing a lot of time in it. At some point, it will feel like work. The second reason you might want to quit is you probably will at some point experience underwhelming response to the work you do. Look, I know that you put a ton of work into your songs, right? We put blood, sweat, and tears into our songs. They take a while to write usually. They also are something that are straight from our hearts, right? We're often talking about stuff that is really, really heavy on us. We're often dealing with some of our own demons by writing our songs. So when we take our songs to our best friends and to people who are really close to us and they seem underwhelmed by it, it can really cut pretty deep. And I think there's also sort of this delusion out there of like, if we build it, they will come type idea, where like, if we just put music out into the world, you just put it up on SoundCloud, people will just come storming in, pound down the door just to listen to your music. But look, there's a ton of music out there. People aren't just gonna find you magically. Yes, that happens once in a great while to certain very, very lucky individuals, but for the most part, just putting music out there is not gonna make people pound down the door to come listen to your music. So it's really easy at some point to get really disappointed by not getting the response that you've sort of built up in your head that your music deserves. And the third reason you might want to quit is really quite connected to the second. You might start to get down on yourself, maybe because of other people's reactions to your music, maybe because of different things in the past, maybe just because you're dealing with imposter syndrome, or you are a beginner songwriter, so you're right, you're not really that good at first. That's to be expected, right? But this is something that we all are going to deal with at some point. So at some point, you're probably going to want to quit because you're going to think, am I even good enough? What does that even mean? Good enough for what? Are you trying to get on pop radio? Like, what's your goal here? Or you might be having too high of expectations for yourself right away. If it's your first song you've ever written, do you really expect that to be the best song you ever write? If anything, you're probably going to get better and better and better as a songwriter. Thank God my first song is nothing like what my current song standards are. If it was, I probably would have quit a long time ago because my first song was pretty crappy. Now let's talk about why you shouldn't quit. So as I mentioned at the beginning, at some point it's going to feel like work. And look, everything's gonna feel like work if it's something worth doing at some point. There's basically 2 different things we can do in this world, right? We can consume, which is when we are listening to other people's music, when we are watching Netflix shows, or we are creating. And the reality is, creating is going to take work. You're doing something really amazing. Something doesn't exist, and you're going to create it, right? Out of basically thin air. You're coming up with the melody, with the rhythm, with the lyrics, and the combination of these things has never been made before. You're creating something that has never existed before, so of course it's going to be work at some point. And look, once you really get into creating, I think it's something that you then have this starvation for. You just need it. There's something so fulfilling about creating something that you know this wouldn't exist if I didn't do it. Guess what? As much as I love Scrubs and The Office, those would still exist even if I didn't watch them for like the 5th time. And then on to point 2, you also shouldn't quit because of some of the underwhelming responses that you might get from other people. One thing to keep in mind is that nothing is for everybody, right? There are people out there who don't like Star Wars. There are people out there that don't like The Office. As I'm saying this, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I'm one of those people. I hate The Office. Steve Carell, I don't think he's funny, right? You and I disagree very much on that. But guess what? The Office is just fine even though you don't like it. And if you do like it, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about you then. Or take Taylor Swift, right? I make fun of Taylor Swift all the time in the podcast. And to be clear, I legitimately really don't like Taylor Swift's music. You might love Taylor Swift's music. How much do you think she cares about how much I don't like her music? Not at all, right? She's raking in her millions and billions of dollars just fine without me liking her music. And then I think the part that might cut the deepest are your friends, close family that might not like your music. But there's a lot of things to keep in mind. One is that a lot of people really like music just based on like the genre that it is. I have some friends that are really just into hard music, very hard heavy metal type stuff, and I don't write that stuff. So why would they like my music just because I write it? Which leads me into the second thing I want to say here, which is just because people like you, the person, doesn't mean that they're gonna like you, the art. And then the same is true the other way around, right? You like plenty of artists, plenty of actors or actresses that you probably wouldn't really like to have coffee with, even if you think you would, but you really like them in movies. A lot of your favorite artists are probably gonna be people that if you actually knew them as a person, you might not like them at all. But does it matter? No, it's their art that you like. If their music speaks to you, you don't know or care about their personality, but it goes the other way as well. Just because somebody's friends with you doesn't mean that they are going to like the content that you create. Doesn't mean that they are going to like your music. If you have a friend that only listens to country music and thinks that it's not even music if it doesn't have a steel guitar in it, they're probably not gonna like your rap album. And then for the last concern, you shouldn't quit if you feel like you're not good enough, because that's a good thing. None of us should ever feel like we're good enough. We should constantly be wanting to improve. You should just be happy with the stage that you are at. If you are a beginner songwriter, well, don't expect yourself to be a great songwriter, right? Don't compare yourself to people who have been paid to write songs for 10 years. If you're just somebody who's writing songs for the first time, your first month of songwriting, and you're like, I'm not as good as insert great songwriter here. Of course you aren't. You haven't gotten there yet. You haven't put in the time yet. That and good enough for what? When you say to yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, what does that even mean? What is the purpose of songwriting for you? Is it just to get on the charts? Is that what you measure success by being like paid to do this? Or do you measure success by feeling good about what you've done? And I'm not saying you shouldn't want to be commercially successful, but that shouldn't be the only thing that makes it worth doing for you. If you truly love songwriting, you should be able to know that you would love to songwrite and enjoy the process even if you knew you'd never make a cent from doing it. So it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies in songwriting. Sometimes you are going to want to quit, but please don't. It will so be worth it. At the end of the day, creating something is such a fulfilling thing, and it's a fulfilling process too if you just stick with it. When you write your first song, when you complete it, when you start writing more and more and you start becoming better and better and you start doing different things, when you get that first person to say, hey man, that song really moved me, or when you get the first stranger who you don't know at all, who has no reason to lie to you, randomly comment on YouTube how much they like your song, whatever scenario it is, all of these things will make it so worth it. And hey, at the end of the day, it should be something that you would do regardless of any of those other things. You should want to do it because you want to write songs. You need to write songs. There are always going to be reasons to want to throw songwriting away. You don't think you have enough time. You don't think you're good enough. Other people don't think you're good enough. Whatever your reasons are, please don't quit songwriting. I promise it will be worth it if you just stick with it. And look, I'm not the person here. I will never make a video. I've never made a video that's like how to make a hit song. There's a lot of videos like that on YouTube. From people, by the way, who have never written a hit song, so I don't even know how they do that. But anyway, that's not what I'm telling you here. What I'm telling you here is, will it be fulfilling for you as an artist, for somebody who wants to do something meaningful, who wants to create something that matters? And if that is you, be sure to stick with songwriting. It's not always gonna be just rainbows and butterflies. I get it, it's not for me either. That's gonna be true for all of us. Even people who are paid millions of dollars to do this, it's not always gonna be a fun experience. At some point it feels like a job, at some point it feels like work, but that doesn't mean that it's not fulfilling and that it's not worth it. So hopefully this encourages you, if you are going through some dark times with your songwriting, to stick with it. Hopefully, if you're not going through dark times, this will encourage you when you do go through dark times to stick with it. If this video was helpful to you, be sure to drop a like on the video, and if you are interested, be sure to download my free guide on 10 different ways to start writing a song if right now you're feeling motivated and you're like, I need to start a song right now, because I am personally a believer that it's really important to start writing a song from different standpoints, because that's really what helps you to write different songs and not songs that all sound the same. The thing I usually sort of poke fun at is the idea of like, grab the guitar, start with a chord progression, because a lot of songwriters do start with that, and that's a valid way to start writing a song, but there are so many other ways to start writing a song that I think can do better things, or at least mix it up a little bit so that all your songs don't start to sound the same, don't all sound like a song that started with a guitar chord progression. So be sure to pick that up. Link in the description, totally free. My gift to you for making it to the end of this video, and my gift to you just for being somebody that wants to write music for the right reasons. So thank you as always for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.